The European market for fibre is really a collection of very different markets, each at different stages of maturity, each at different stages of development, and each with different market structures. The markets that we think are most interesting in Europe are the UK and Germany. And this is for a couple of reasons. Traditionally, both of these markets have had high penetration at speeds of up to 30 megabits per second. However, until 5 years ago, when infrastructure builders started building out fibre networks, there was no FTTP coverage, or very limited FTTP coverage relative to other European countries. Over the last 4 or 5 years, what we've started to see is a lot of money come into the UK market for fibre. This means that now, today, there's about 100 different fibre operators and builders in the UK market. As a consequence, this is leading to an amount of overbuild.
Germany, there's similar issues with overbuild. Estimates show that by 2030 there could well be 40% overbuild in the German market as players look to roll out fibre across the country. Whilst there are concerns around the overbuild, we have seen recently from working with clients that businesses are reconsidering their build-out strategy. Some of that has been forced upon them by external stakeholders, and they're having to reconsider the cost and expense of their rollout strategy versus pausing that or scaling that back a little bit to focus more on revenue generation and connecting customers.
So what we're seeing is the incumbents are far more active in markets such as the UK and also in Germany. Openreach here in the UK is far more active than it was and has a different strategy as part of the BT group than it did a number of years ago. This is putting a lot of pressure on the altnets and they're trying to compete with that incumbent.
If you combine the huge levels of competition, both for rollout and pricing, with the challenging headwinds due to inflationary pressures, labour shortages, the interest rates, it's a really tough operating environment for the players in the UK and elsewhere. We at AlixPartners have looked at the market to segregate the market to an extent, and we see it in 4 different lights. You have those incumbent players such as Openreach and VMO2 who have huge capital behind them, a huge network and rollout already in place. You have potential altnet consolidators. These businesses tend to be larger, well capitalised and may well already have some nationwide footprint. The third piece of this is around the potential altnet consolidation targets. So those assets, those companies that may be attractive to some of the larger players. And these might be smaller, less capitalised businesses, and they may well be focused on specific regions in the country. So with distressed businesses, we are seeing increasing numbers of these, working both with management teams and investors and lenders. The businesses, the issues we are seeing are anything from liquidity constraints, where we have been asked to help understand the runway available, help understand working capital issues, pressures. Also with these distressed businesses, they are under increasing strain to reassess their business plan and review the business plan key assumptions and build out and revenue conversion rates there. Another area that we are seeing more and more of are some of these businesses are fast growing, agile, small businesses which are suddenly seeing huge amounts of investment. And because the market has turned and the challenges it's facing, management teams are facing increasing scrutiny from outside stakeholders. So we are seeing situations where we are having to, been asked to help and take on interim roles or help with the financial governance and financial reporting, planning and analysis.
Firstly, it's worth bearing in mind that these business plans of these altnets were developed in a much more positive business environment than the one that we're seeing today. What this means is that the scrutiny that those business plans went through was far lower than it would be today if you're an investor. And some of the metrics that are looked at in those business plans, in particular around homes passed, they really need to be considered in a very, very different way to what they had been a number of years ago. So we see quite different definitions of homes passed. I mean, in some cases, The definition of homes passed is anything from 500 metres from the customer premise to 1,000 metres from the customer premise. That's a wide variation. And if you're an investor today looking at these business plans, that has a huge CapEx implication for you as you think about connecting those homes in the future. In addition, the cost of installation is also important. Wayleaves, for example, can have a big impact on the cost of an operator wanting to connect a customer, and also the time to market to connect that customer, particularly in urban areas where leasehold properties in the UK are quite common. And also, the build quality of networks is also key. What we see is quite different levels of build quality, whether operators are deploying duct, whether they're putting fibre up on poles, whether they're trenching. And what we're seeing is some replacement is needed of this network where bad builds have been done, and that's going to be an important consideration for an investor going forward. The key part about M&A is you've got to compare the cost of the M&A to the organic build. What is going to be the difference between those two business cases? And moreover, when you understand that difference, it's also understanding the integration cost of the M&A and the complexity of that integration. Putting two networks together is extremely difficult and extremely costly, and players need to make sure that that's done in a coherent and value-creating way.
Consolidation is absolutely going to be something that is on the radar of all the players and investors. The number of alternate players combined with the overbuild, the challenges, etc., it's not sustainable, and there will be a consolidation play. There have been some smaller alternates that have been taken on through M&A transactions, some more or less distressed than others. It's going to be a really interesting space over the coming year or two to see how things play out in the market, who will be consolidators, who will be consolidation targets, and those that can successfully manage through these headwinds impacting the sector. Those businesses that will succeed undoubtedly will be those that remain agile and resilient during these turbulent times.